Welcome to Fieldsports Britain. Coming up, it's all cooks and books. First up, we're going potty with Clarissa Dickson-Wright, talking us through badger, swan and seal. We're out pigeon shooting with game chef Mark Gilchrist, and we ask who ate all the pies. First, let's tell the tale of a London poacher. Cleve Edmonston grew up in Walthamstow, East 17. The house he was born in is still here, but the area has changed a lot. In the 1960s, Cleve would spend his days trying to outwit the police and waterboard men by bagging a rabbit, mallard or pigeon just a few minutes' walk away from the busy London streets. He's just had his first book published. He's just had his first Captain Cook published. Tales of a London Poacher. It takes the reader back to the East End in the 1960s when carrying a shotgun down the street out of its slip wouldn't earn a second glance, never mind a helicopter and a chat with CO-19. This map in the front of the book shows the haunts he and his friends used to explore. Areas of scrubland behind the allotments were known to the teenagers as the jungle. The Walthamstow marshes were an adventure playground where a poacher could practice his fieldcraft, making sure he remained invisible to the quarry and the old bill. Closest to home were the Walthamstow reservoirs. They're very much as Cleve remembers, except they're now a nature reserve and one has been turned into filtration beds for London's water.
There's a couple of bits that I refer to in the book. On this far bank of number 5, it slopes down quite dramatically the other side, and I was over one night trying to poach surface feeders, mallards, with a 9mm Anschutz bolt action shotgun, otherwise known as a garden gun. And one of the little tricks that you could get up to was to empty the lead shot out of the shell, crimp up airgun pellets, and you could get about 6 airgun pellets inside the shell. And then the idea was to creep over the edge of the banking, and if there was any mallards feeding on weed, you could squeeze one little shot off before they took flight or whatever, and you might end up with a nice big fat mallard. And I clicked off a shot over here on this corner. It made a crack like a little 2-2, and lights went on absolutely everywhere. And further down Sandy Alley, there was gates that were open, and there was a police car sitting there waiting, and just like something out of Heartbeat, there was two policemen on what was known as noddy bikes, and they started to figure of 8 around these reservoirs in search of me. Now I don't know whether I'd become complacent and sort of shot this area too much, but anyway, these guys didn't give up. They chased me for 2.5 hours. I had nowhere really to sort of to hide, because as you can see, it's quite short grass on a reservoir. So I actually ended up diving into the long grass where the tractors couldn't get, beneath that pylon in the distance. And I laid there while the headlights of these so-called noddy bikes or Velocet actually sort of shone through the grass but failed to detect me. 2.5 hours later, I ended up getting over the far end of number 4, where there's a railway line, and actually drop into the pavement in Forest Road, whereby I caught a bus back home, leaving the police still searching for me on Walthamstow reservoirs. It's quite exciting.
Cleve was introduced to shooting and fishing as a boy by the older brother of a friend from school. His love of field sports has stayed with him through his life. He now shoots over a couple of golf courses, keeping down muntjac numbers and shooting foxes and nuns and rabbits. The reason he wrote the book was to make sure his children knew a bit about their dad. Cleve wishes he'd known more about his father. When his son read the book, he suggested Cleve got it published. The marshes were a hive of activity for Cleve and his friends. It was better than taking a Jane Fonda wander round the supermarket when he wanted to fill the pot.
There was a guy known as Black Powder Pete, and we nicknamed him Black Powder Pete because he only fired black powder shells. So if you can imagine, he had tall grasses and he'd be crouched in the grass, and you saw this plume of white smoke go up, and you thought, that's where Pete is, because it was Black Powder Pete using these black powder cartridges. There was another guy, Albie C. Looked a bit like a gnome. He had a short, stocky guy, dead straight nose and kind of little beady eyes, and he couldn't see a hand in front of his face. But there again, he could spot and tell the difference between a feral pigeon and a wood pigeon, you know, further than what you could actually see the pigeon. And say, well, hold back, guys, it's a, you know, we won't shoot this, it's a street pigeon, or it's a racing pigeon. And everybody had relaxed, and then when it got into range, no, it's a wood pigeon, he'd come up and shoot it. Yeah, there was all characters. There was a guy, Jimmy B, I called him Jimmy B. Again, powerfully built fella. He used to use a 4-bore muzzle loader, like a Davy Crockett kind of thing, and he used to fire something like 2 ounces of shot to, or 2 ounces of powder to 4 ounces of shot through this massive Davy Crockett kind of thing. Pour it down. He used to have the powder horn and the shot, ram it down. And on a Sunday afternoon, I was on West Warwick with a friend of mine, and we saw this flash like lightning and this roll of thunder and this big column of smoke come across the sky. And about 45 minutes later, he's come back with a pair of duck, and he'd actually downed 2 flying duck with 1 shot with this massive 4-bore muzzle loader. So,
good times.
It was good times.
Yeah, tell me, how does it make you thinking about it now? What was it like then, and what's it like on reflection?
On reflection, maybe we're a bit too PC. The biggest upset is I keep coming back to it, it's a respect factor. If we did upset the waterboard guys in any way, if we were walking on waterboard property and the guy came round, he had no powers of arrest, even though he looked like a policeman. You know, they dressed like policemen, they had Alsatians with them, but they had no powers of arrest. They had powers to hold you there if they could or wanted to, or whatever, until the police turned up to arrest you. But on seeing them, you respected them. You were over there poaching. No other word for it. You were over there illegally poaching, shooting, fishing, or whatever. These guys had a job to do. When they came along and told you to move, or you sort of held their hands up, it's a fair cop, we're off. And we used to leave. You know, no harm done.
After a hard day on the marshes, the boys would retire to the local Colonel Gaddafi cafe.
We would bang away for a couple of hours and then go to the Woodman Cafe by the Lee Marina for a big Sunday fry-up breakfast. Again with guns and cartridge belts strewn all over the tables, quite openly, and wet dogs and muddy Wellington boots. Yet no one ever complained, and no police were ever called, and no trouble was ever caused. I lived for and loved those Sunday mornings.
Another exciting bit of ground was the jungle lying in the shadow of Ash Mountain.
And I was over here banging away on a Saturday evening, and completely out of the blue, one guy was standing in front of me, both dressed in suits, and he's grabbed hold of my shotgun barrel, silly thing to do. He's pulled it, he said, "I'll take that, son." And at the same time, another guy has appeared behind me and said that they were police and they arrested me. But then they couldn't find their way out, so they wanted me as their guide. So I took them, let's say I took them the long way round. And 2 policemen in nice grey suits walking through this is not a pretty sight when they come out the other end. Anyway, they charged me with 14 charges altogether, ranging from shooting in the vicinity of children to breaking an entry. They'd done with all kinds of stuff, and I was quite nervy. So they took me up to the police station, they released me, and they said on the Wednesday, come back and we'll officially charge you. So I went back with my dad on the Wednesday evening. I was respectable, suited and cleaned up. And I don't know what my dad said to this sergeant on the desk, but he's gone up to the desk and I'm sitting there on a little wooden bench thinking I'm going to go down for life. And I saw my dad sign for the equipment. The sergeant pushed me shotgun back, my cartridge belt, even the empty cartridges. And we left the police station and no more was ever said.
If you would like to get hold of Tales of a London Poacher, go to www.anglebooks.com to order your copy. Well, staying in London, we're at the Countryside Alliance Awards judging, and I'm with Clarissa Dickson-Wright. Clarissa, you got a book out just before Christmas about potting. And I was thinking 1970s, everything boiled to death. I'm trying to imagine, here we are in London, a nice little Hampstead dinner party with everything cooked out of one pot. Is that possible?
Oh, absolutely, and very delicious. I mean, I did the Michael Ball show. I did 6 of them cooking out of one pot food, and I think they were all a bit dubious. And everybody's going, gosh, this is really good, you know. And I mean, there was one recipe, which is a Galatian recipe, which is squid with meatballs, which is absolutely delicious. And you could see Michael Ball's face. And then he tasted it, and he was going, oh, this is really good. You know. And that's all cooked in one pot. And I just say, well, you know, have it with bread. And of course, there's nothing to stop people, if they want, putting a baked potato in the oven at the same time as it's in the oven. So.
Now, nobody would ever accuse you of writing a non-serious book, but your next book is more weighty, certainly, a history.
It's a history of English food from the Second Crusade. The reason the Second Crusade is that Eleanor of Aquitaine, when she was Queen of France, actually went on the Second Crusade, and I'm sure she was responsible for bringing back all the different spices and sugar. Sugar came back a lot earlier than most historians give it credit for. And she also established the wine trade with France, because Aquitaine is Bordeaux. And then you've got all that wonderful bit on the living larder in the Middle Ages, you know, which is largely concerned with the things we all love best, like hunting, shooting and fishing, you know. Deer, stag hunting, deer hunting, warrens for rabbits, coursing for hares. Elizabeth I's favourite sport was coursing. And she actually got the Duke of Norfolk to write down the rules of coursing at the time, and they haven't changed a lot since. And then there was falconry, and of course, moving on, there's the introduction of the shotgun, which transformed shooting. I mean, that wonderful picture of everybody going north for the 12th of August, you know, for the grouse shooting. And so there's a lot of that, but also, you know, a lot of recipes for those sort of things.
Like swan and hedgehog and that sort of thing?
Oh, absolutely, definitely. And seal.
Oh, how do you cook a seal?
Well, you boil it. I think it was, I mean, it was not what the rich ate. And I think the poor probably cooked it in one pot being the seal skin, which they'd sewed up again after gutting it. So it doesn't say what it tasted like. I have eaten swan, which I wouldn't rush to eat, but seal I draw the line at. And of course, badger. When I was young, badger was still very much eaten in country districts, quite legally. Solved the badger crisis, wouldn't it? Because pubs in the West Country used to have a badger ham on the bar.
What sort of
like a ham on Iberico.
Like Serrano ham?
That's absolutely, made with badger. I mean, very good it was too.
Was it fatty in the same way? Did it have that rich?
It did have that rich depth of flavour about it. If you think, you know, badger, what it eats, and it's very much on a par with the pig. And, you know, rabbits were a valuable possession all through the Middle Ages. You know, the great estates all had a rabbit warren. And it was the Second World War, really, that banged it on the head. The last working warren was at Highclere Castle. And I was talking to a chap who was lading for me, whose father had been the keeper at Highclere. And he said that every year they used to bring buck rabbits down from the Norfolk estate to improve the breeding stock.
Last question, and I'll let you go judging. Is there, in your mind, a link between this kind of supermarket culture and the anti-fox hunting culture that led to a ban?
I think there probably must be, because I think what's happened is that people have simply lost touch with the countryside. I'm patron of the Farmers Markets Association in this country and president in Scotland. And really one of the great things of the farmers market was that it put people back in touch with having conversations with farmers. Because there's this huge gap into which players step. And, you know, he said, I'm going to do to the farmers what the Conservatives did to the miners. And I think, you know, the whole thing is all wrapped up together. During the foot and mouth crisis, I'm a member of the Butchers Guild, Margaret Beckett never never spoke to the butchers. All she ever spoke to was the supermarkets.
Mark Gilchrist is the sporting shooter magazine Celebrity Chef. Happily, people only eat 3 times a day, so every extra second he has, he spends out shooting or stalking. Today, it's corvids and pigeons in Oxfordshire, in the heart of the south of England's pigeon country. Kit is a major part of a pigeon shooter's life. Any fool can be uncomfortable, so Mark is sitting on an Idleback chair. It's a bit of a grey day for pigeons, and all the birds locally look like they have already eaten. During one slow patch, Mark takes the chair out to show how robust it is. It really is as tough as the manufacturer claims.
It worked very well. I mean, I jumped up and down on it, and anything that can withstand me jumping up and down on it is probably fairly indestructible.
Do I have to ask who ate all the pies?
Maggie ate all the pies.
Oh, well.
Because obviously I am now, my extensive modelling portfolio means that I don't weigh as much as I used to. So I had to pick up Maggie, who I've given most of the pies to, to bulk up our mutual mass.
So actually getting a celebrity chef to jump up and down on your chair doesn't really prove how structurally sound it is.
No, not when you're as waif-like as myself. But I got the Labrador, whose only hobby is fish and chips, to bulk it up, and we bounced up and down, and it didn't break. It is actually very, very sturdy. If you look at all the different parts, it's got joints are very big, and you look at it and think, well, there's nothing that's going to break there. And also, it's the right height. Because lots of people have stools where their bottom is below their knees, which is such a stupid thing to do because you can't get up. But here, as you can see, my small bottom is above my small knees, so I can get up. On a serious note, you can get up nice and easily. So it's the sort of thing I'd definitely use, and it is very sturdy. I mean, it's and it's comfortable as well. You're not going to sit. It's not like sitting on a barrel. So after 25 minutes, you've got an impression of a handle running across your backside.
So you could spend a whole day on that.
I could spend a whole day and a whole night, if they had a drinks holder. I don't know if they've thought of diversifying into that.
The other equipment Mark loves is his gun, the Browning Maxus.
It is a very, very good gun. It fits me very nicely. It's got a nice bit of rib on it, so you can see a lot more of what you're doing. And I don't know if it's just sort of the way it fits me or it is the gun, but I seem to be a bit more accurate with it and more consistent. I tried the Benelli, which jammed on me, so I gave it back to someone and said, "Where did you get this from? Toys R Us?" To which I think they understood I had some disdain for it. I've used Berettas a long time, but they don't last if you're going to give them the kind of pasting I'm going to give them. And eventually they do break down, and then you can spend a lot of money trying to get them to work again, and they don't.
So what does it take to put on a good pigeon day?
The way we work it is that we put the guns out, however many guns that could be, 4, 6, whatever. And then once the guns start shooting, inevitably the birds will sneak off to other fields where there aren't any guns because they don't want to get shot at. And it's our job to then go around behind the birds on those other fields which haven't got any guns on them and push them back with our own guns. So we effectively act as beaters. That's where the majority of our success comes from, is that we can keep the birds up in the air and keep them hungry, and that therefore makes them go to the clients.
Another successful day and a happy client. For more about the Idleback chair range, visit www.idleback.co.uk. To book shooting with UK Shoot Warehouse, visit www.ukshootwarehouse.com. We're back next week. This has been Fieldsports Britain.